My name is Jack Kupferman. Myself and Carol Agengo, we are the co-focal points of the United Nations Stakeholder Group on Aging. Now, the Stakeholder Group on Aging is one of the important constituency groups to support the high-level political forum and the kind of be advisors to the Sustainable Development Goals as they progress. Each year, the United Nations sponsors a 2-week effort called the High-Level Political Forum to assess the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals, of which the concerns of older people is an important and critical aspect, because older people represent approximately 900 million people globally. We are proud to be able to present this Zoom event to highlight the issues of how the generations coming together can create important social change, whether it's at the family level, community level, national level, or global level. We think that this is one of those underappreciated aspects to accelerate the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals. We're all aware of the very difficult position of the world in today. And what we're hoping to do is to provide inspiration. In this event, we want people to see how change can be accomplished by generations working together, older people and younger people working together towards a common goal anywhere in the world. Of course, older people and younger people have always loved each other and worked together well. But how is that focused? And how can we make that an important driver of change? So I'm grateful that everyone has been happy to join us today. And I wanted to do a little bit of thank yous. I wanted to say thank you to Carol Agengo for being the co-focal point on the Stakeholder Group on Aging, to Amal Rafa, who is the UN focal point on aging and has been so helpful in putting this together. And the UN DESA focal point on aging has been is the co-sponsor of this event. Also, of course, I want to say thank you to Sylvia Beals, who's been so instrumental in helping make this event happen. Kathy Klein, Ina Volker, and who else? There are others, Emily Trask, who has been our tech guru. So those are people who I want to particularly thank. And, we've been talking, I just briefly mentioned what the purpose of this event is. That is to create change and to accelerate the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals through the resources and talents of older people and younger people working together. The other item before I close is that so often we see older people as the recipients of charity, as burdens on society. It's important for all of us to flip that, to not, of course, people need assistance. And now it is important to see the talents and the benefits of aging, not just the deterioration. That's what we're going to be highlighting today. So I would like you to, in the chat, can you put it in again, please, the program? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start now. And we're going to start by asking the ambassador, the deputy permanent representative from Kenya, to offer a few introductory remarks. Would you be so kind as to take the floor? Are you there? Hello?
Okay. Hi.
So grateful to meet you. So grateful to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And a very good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Jambi Kenyungu. I'm the Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Kenya to the United Nations here in New York. And I'm really glad to join this very important meeting and discussion on a very critical issue around to do with aging. And I believe for each one of us, we age every single day. And I agree with you, Jack, that we must see ourselves in this conversation. And I believe that's why we are here. And for those of us who are very committed to this issue around intergenerational networks. I would like to thank Carol Agengo and you, Jack, as co-focal points of the Stakeholder Group on Aging for organizing this important event. Bridging intergenerational divides is crucial in fostering understanding, empathy, and communication across different age groups. I would like to share with you my personal experience because I call myself a child of intergenerational networks. I was brought up by my mother and my father, but I benefited a lot from my grandfather and my grandmother. And I was able to do that because of the language, my mother tongue. My parents made sure that I spoke my mother tongue. And therefore, I was able to communicate and gain knowledge and skills and craftsmanship from my grandparents, and also wisdom from them. You know, the African community, we use a lot of poems, poetry, and wise sayings. And I am bringing this up because for us, especially most of us, the African tradition, you pass on knowledge through oral tradition. So what that has done is, because I learned from my grandmother, my grandfather, and to my mother, my children have also, through again learning and speaking our mother tongue, which is Kikuyu, they've been able to also benefit from their great-grandparents' wisdom. So I'm taking that trajectory because right now, a lot of our children are now learned. They can use computers. They are also able to take up the traditional knowledge that they have gained and put that into paper. An example being through research and so on. So I want to use myself as that example of this importance of the intergenerational, how to bridge intergenerational divides and how to network. That said, I would like to also say that it's important to recognize that aging is an opportunity that contributes to sustainable development. And especially now that we are saying we are behind in Agenda 2030 and also in the Sustainable Development Goals. And this would include, requires us to have active participation of all ages in society. The statistics are very clear. We know that the population in the world is aging. We expect and anticipate that it's been projected by the UN through also UNDESA and some of the researches that have been carried out, that at least 1 in every 6 people in the year 2050 will be people who are 65 years and older. When I see those figures, I know I'm going to be in that group. Then how do we ensure that we harness on these talents, knowledge, skills, craftsmanship, and also the education that the older persons of 65 and older have? It will require us to ensure that we gain from the wisdom that the older people have. And we say the older persons have enormous potential, and we know that. Some of us are here, and we also have the younger generation. But the thing is, how do you then ensure that there is enough networking or facilities or infrastructure that allow for that bridging of bridging the differences and the divides? between the older generation, the intermediate, because there's also a critical intermediate group who are people in their 40s and 50s and 40s, and then the younger people who we are now calling the Gen Z, heading down to the Alpha. I would like to highlight here that Kenya's population for older persons has been increasing. In the 1960s, the statistics were 270,000. Now we are talking about the figure of between 2.1 million to 2.7 million. And of course, that is expected and anticipated to increase so that by the year 2050, according to a study that was carried out by the African Population Health and Research Center, it is expected that 9.5% of Kenya's population will, by 2050, will constitute of persons, older persons of 65 and older. I would like to also share with you that while we have a reason to celebrate, we also must have the wisdom to leverage on this unexploited potential. In one of our languages in Kenya, there is a saying which says, and I'll say it in my language, rohio roge rotiagaga, rohio roge nerotuhaga. That means a sharp knife gets blunt, or young people get older, and so on. So what is it that we can learn from that kind of saying? And I've said about older people being custodians of knowledge. They are the transmitters of our social values. How do we make sure that that continues as they get older and we tap into them and their knowledge before they pass on to another life? Older people have economic contributions, as Jack, you've said. They are the ones who are even also helping us to look after our children. Incidentally, that is happening a lot, and especially in this world where there is a lot of, all of us have to work and spend a lot of time in the workspaces. So, given that, I would like to also mention that Kenya has been implementing several programs and policies, and also developed different legal frameworks in order to ensure that the older generation is also taken care of. We have ratified recently in 2001 the ratification of I think it's 2021, the ratification of the Africa Protocol that relates to aging persons. And also we are members of the open-ended working group on aging, and I will be speaking to that later. Now, notwithstanding, I would like to share a few ideas of how we can ensure that there is a better intergenerational way of dealing with intergenerational divides. I have 5 proposals. 1, the efforts must be put in place to promote awareness among the younger generation through formal and informal education to bridge the intergenerational gap. 2nd, we need to encourage voluntary initiatives where older persons can make substantive contribution to society by fostering intergenerational dialogue and solidarity within communities. Volunteerism can be, and we know it has been, very important depending on the situation on this intergeneration, bridging this intergenerational divide. 3rd, providing opportunities within educational programs and community institutions where older persons can act as mentors, advisors, resource persons, and teachers. Older persons can also undertake critical roles such as in mediation and conflict resolution. In Kenya, community centers and social groups have been established to provide platforms for older persons and the younger people to engage in social activities, share their experiences, exchange ideas, and participate in lifelong learning. 4th, collaborating with other member states, non-government organizations, the private sector, philanthropic organizations, religious organizations, and organizations of older persons to share best practices, implement programs that help to bridge the intergenerational gap between older persons and the youth, and to combat social isolation among older persons. 5th, mainstreaming of financing mechanisms, and investing in programs and infrastructure that harness the potential of older persons. For example, when I talk about investing, Kenya last year constructed what is called the Kirinyaga Rescue Center, and it cost $500,000 US. So in order for that amount of $500,000 US, and the target is to have centers in all the 47 counties. So you can imagine what that would mean. You're probably talking about needing more than $20 billion US to do those kind of centers, and they will not keep all the people, the older persons. So investing is very important. And I would also suggest that even while investing, we need to look into already existing facilities and spaces that can be remodeled in order to allow for intergenerational networking, intergenerational centers. And we need to also bring on board institutions of higher learning, such as universities, schools of architecture, schools of land use planning. How do we ensure that that is also mainstreamed within our planning systems? In conclusion, we welcome the adoption by consensus of Decision 14.1 that recognized an international legally binding instrument as an option to address the gaps in the protection of older people's rights in the international human rights framework. Such an instrument will ensure full and comprehensive protection of the rights of older people everywhere, allowing us to live in dignity and rights as we go and as we age. Kenya remains committed in creating a society that values its older citizens and empowers them to actively contribute to our collective prosperity, and of course, to contribute to achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030. I thank you, and I look forward to listening to the other speakers and the briefers, although I will leave a little early because I have another meeting. Thank you very much. Asante.
Ambassador, I want to say thank you so much. What you've just done is you've offered a blueprint for the world on how to create intergenerational connections that can establish positive social change. You've been specific and broad thinking. You were looking at it from a global perspective, not only from a Kenyan perspective, and that's really great. I'm so happy that you were able to provide these insights for us. And we'll miss you when you have to leave, but thank you so much. Our next introductory presenter is Stefano Guerra, an attaché at the Mission of Portugal to the United Nations. He has been very involved in the issues of older people, particularly in recent years, and he will no doubt have great insights and examples for us. Stefano, would you be so grateful as to take the floor?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you for inviting me. And of course, thanks to the Stakeholder Group on Aging for organizing this side event on the margins of HLPF. So as per the introduction, I'm Stefano Guerra, working here at the Permanent Mission of Portugal to the UN on issues mostly related to human rights. Indeed, intergenerational dialogue and solidarity has been one of the areas that Portugal has been strengthening at the UN. And I have to say it's even more a pleasure for me because both age areas, youth and older persons, fall under my daily work. And because intergenerational dialogue and promoting the engagement of both older and younger generations in the pursuit of sustainable development goals is key to the successful realization of the 2030 agenda. Portugal has long been at the forefront of advocating for inclusive and sustainable development practices. In recent years, it has particularly distinguished by recognizing the invaluable contributions that individuals of all ages can make towards achieving global goals. This approach not only acknowledges the wisdom and experiences of older generations, but also harnesses the energy and innovations of the youth. In Portugal, we see older persons as a valuable part of our societies, possessing a wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and experience that enriches our communities and shapes our culture, our future. It is imperative, therefore, that we recognize and honor older persons' contributions by ensuring their full inclusion in all aspects of public life. The importance of intergenerational dialogue cannot be overstated, and it is through conversations and exchanges across age groups that we cultivate understanding, empathy, and a shared commitment to building a better future for all. At the heart of Portugal's efforts lies a profound belief in the power of collaboration and collective action, because by bridging generational divides and encouraging meaningful participation in SDG initiatives, Portugal not only enriches its own society, but also sets a compelling example for global cooperation. Allow me to highlight one aspect related to the implementation of the SDGs through concrete actions. In 2022, in the framework of the Commission for Social Development, we co-organized an event on intergenerational dialogue and participation as a tool to create full and productive employment and decent work for all, overcoming inequalities and achieving SDGs by 2030. The event sought to build mutually empowering relationship between generations as one of the most important factors in achieving the SDGs. And I see some of the participants of that meeting here today. Our aim in our daily work is to ensure that all people, including young and older persons, recognize themselves as owners, drivers, and beneficiaries of the SDGs. Intergenerational dialogues are a great way for different generations to share their views and experiences, where young generations can learn from the progress that the generations before them made. Older generations can learn from the new battles that younger people are facing and jointly think of ways to challenge them. Allow me to conclude with a few words on the recommendations of the Open-Ended Working Group on Aging adopted in March, as the Kenny also mentioned, that were co-facilitated by Portugal and Brazil. The document, among other very relevant provisions, I'm not going to mention them, clearly recognizes the essential contribution that older persons can continue to make to the functioning of societies and towards the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And it also stresses the need to ensure that issues of relevance to older persons, and not only, are taken into account in its implementation in order to ensure that no one is left behind, including older persons. And I will conclude here. Thank you very much.
Stefano, thank you so much for those beautiful comments. Part of the underlying thing that I hear is the amount of love that goes into that from Portugal and from elsewhere in terms of not just the power and the importance of intergenerational advocacy and activism, but the humanity of it. So I want to say thank you for those beautiful comments. Next, let's move on to Amal Rafa, who is the UN focal point on aging and who has been essential in putting together this event, and for which we at the Stakeholder Group on Aging are eternally grateful. Amal, can you set the scene for us?
Thank you so much, Jack, and big thanks to the Stakeholder Group on Aging for their continued partnership on these important issues. With just 6 years remaining until the target date of the Sustainable Development Goals is to be achieved, I'm pleased to announce that we are releasing an issue brief, the link to which you'll find on the page that I've just shared in the chat. This is a working document that our team has prepared as an update to analyze the voluntary national reviews that have been submitted to the High-Level Political Forum from 2016 to 2023, which reveal varying levels of awareness and response to aging-related issues. It's sort of divided into two segments. The first will talk about a grouping of the trends of issues that popped out across these voluntary national reviews. I think we reviewed around over 329 in total, if I'm not mistaken. And the second part divides the reference by specific goals, and we list the member states that bring up older persons under these specific goals, which we hope will also help the constituency in their advocacy efforts on various issues. In the report submitted by governments, some connections are very clear. For instance, 30% of the reviews referred to older persons under Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. And this underscores the importance of enabling older persons to work as long as they wish and are able to do so. However, other connections are overlooked. Only 12% of the reviews refer to older persons under Goal 4, which is quality education, despite the crucial role that education plays in enhancing labor productivity across all age groups during demographic transitions towards older societies. Also, I know that in today's event, we'll be hearing about climate action. You may be interested to know that nearly 2% of the voluntary national reviews mentioned older persons under Goal 13, climate action, despite their vulnerability to climate change and their significant contributions to environmental advocacy based on their extensive knowledge and lived experiences. Also, as member states race against time to accelerate the implementation of Agenda 2030, we believe that the active participation of older persons becomes crucial to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is good news for youth as well. I've heard in a lot of events this week, member states linking discussions of the high-level political forum to the upcoming Summit of the Future. If we travel together into that future, say the year 2050, future generations in more developed regions are projected to spend more than twice of their lives in older age than they will during their young ages. And in less developed regions, those future generations are projected to live almost twice as long in their lives in older age than in young age. So how perfect it is and convenient the timing of this event that takes an intergenerational approach to this issue. Thank you so much for holding it. I hope this helps set the scene for our discussion. And I look forward to collectively strive to create a more inclusive and equitable world for all ages. Thank you, Jack, and I look forward to hearing our panel members.
Fantastic, as always, Amal. You bring everything into some sort of a beautiful, forward-thinking opportunity that's part of what we need. And as part of this discussion that we're having, it's translating those words into actions. And what we're going to be doing with the various panel members, we're going to show and give examples as inspiration to the world on the specific ways, or at least the beginnings of ways, to make intergenerational collaboration and partnership into effective agents of social change. So what I would like to do is start with our panel. We're going to start with Kate Poppenhagen, who is a long-term care ombudsman in Colorado. Long-term care ombudsman is someone who goes into long-term care facilities and advocates on behalf of residents so that the care that's given is appropriate and is not only within standards, but exceeds standards. Kate, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself and to also provide your remarks?
Yes. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everyone, for the opening remarks today. I also want to thank the Stakeholder Group on Aging for hosting us, and for the other panelists, I look forward to hearing from you. So my name is Kate Copenhagen. I've been working as a long-term care ombudsman for the past 3 years, and I will be leaving this role at the end of the month because I'm starting my PhD journey in social gerontology at the University of Miami in Oxford, Ohio. In my work as a long-term care ombudsman, I've had the privilege to be engaged in many different kinds of intergenerational advocacy projects with nursing home residents. In America, the long-term care system is really complex. We have about 1.3 million people who are currently living in nursing homes. And there's a lot of different reasons that somebody might move into a long-term care facility like a nursing home. Home health care here is really expensive, and there are very limited and very restrictive resources for public funding to help folks afford in-home care. People might not have family members who can care for them, or their care needs might exceed what a family member can afford or provide. Once somebody moves into a skilled nursing community, they become segregated from the greater community. We know that social isolation and loneliness are a serious public health crisis. And for older adults, social isolation and loneliness can lead to serious medical conditions such as heart attack and stroke, and can also lead to an increased chance for dementia. As Jack had mentioned, as my role as an ombudsman, I advocate alongside of residents to promote and protect their rights. When an individual moves out of the greater community into a skilled nursing facility, they're granted additional rights at the federal level. Some of these rights are actually in place to help promote and protect their access to the greater community and make sure that they continue to keep social relations with those who live outside of the nursing home. So today I just wanted to share a project that I've been working on with a nursing home resident. His name is Dan, and we've been working together for the past year to advocate for more accessible, affordable, reliable transportation for nursing home residents in the area of Colorado that we live in. So Dan reached out to me after the nursing home transportation company raised their rates for a personal ride. They raised it from $25 a ride to $75 a ride, and they also cut their service hours and would no longer be providing personal transportation after 6 p.m. Dan really just wants to hang out with his friends one Saturday evening a month. And so with the changes, that didn't look like it was going to be possible anymore. So Dan and I started at the level of the facility, and we quickly learned that the transportation company was actually a separate entity than the nursing home. So the federal regulations and the resident rights that I usually use as a platform for my advocacy wouldn't apply. Dan reached out to local accessible transportation companies, and he ran into different barriers. Some of them wouldn't provide him a ride because his friend lived outside of their service area. There were some companies that closed at 6 p.m. and there were others that just had really, really terrible reviews and really, really poor customer service. But he took a chance and he booked a ride with a community provider, and they didn't show. So he had to use the nursing home's transportation company on a Saturday after hours, and he was charged $265 for one ride, less than 10 miles, $265. Dan is a Medicaid recipient, which means he only gets to keep about $100 a month from his income. And that $100 a month is called a personal needs allowance. And this amount for nursing home residents varies by state. It can be as little as $30 a month up to about $200 a month. Personal needs allowance is used to afford things like books and magazines and hair appointments, and Dan was using it to afford personal transportation. It's important to understand that Medicaid doesn't cover personal transportation. Long-term care Medicaid will not cover non-medical transportation. And at the federal level, nursing homes are not required to provide personal transportation, but they are required to help residents arrange for transportation. So since we knew that there was really not a whole lot we could do inside of the system of long-term care, we started to seek out unconventional platforms outside of the system of long-term care for which to share Dan's story. So I have appeared in front of county government and shared his story with them. Dan has provided public comment to the city council where we live via Zoom. And we've also been connected with a local transportation stakeholder committee. And we've been providing them with education to raise awareness of the need for more accessible transportation. But we're also asking them to be responsible for doing outreach to nursing home residents about local transportation companies that offer low to no cost community transportation options. So a central goal to our advocacy efforts has been to bridge this gap between the greater community and nursing home residents, and really to think through how, as a community in general, we can all work to support and promote resident rights to be in the greater community. So in closing, when I think about how and where the 1.3 million people who are currently living in nursing homes fit into a future forward planning framework, such as the Sustainable Development Goals, I look to goal number 1, end poverty in all of its forms. And I also look to goal 16, pieces of it, thinking about building effective, accountable, inclusive institutions at all levels. And then I think about the underrepresentation of people with disabilities in politics, especially as I have watched Dan try to engage actively in civic matters when he can't do so in person. He can't find transportation to get there. So I think about how these goals could be used in the transformation of our long-term care systems to address the multiple and compounding barriers that lead to the segregation and isolation of our nursing home residents. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kate. You are always a passionate advocate with great specificity and great heart. Now, I'm excited to introduce Rose Gahiri. Would you be so kind as to introduce yourself, including the name of your organization? And we look forward to your presentation. We'd appreciate it if you can keep it within the time limits that we set. Rose, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you, Jack. Also, I would like to thank the Stakeholders Group on Aging, which invited me to talk. I'm Rose Gahiri, as Jack said. I'm a founder and executive director of Palliative Care Association. It's in the NECHAD, and the vice chair of Rwanda National NCD Alliance, and also the vice chair of Sindagiza, which is a Help Age International Network member, promoting the welfare and dignity and the rights of older people. I'm also in the steering committee of GALP, which is fighting for the rights of people, and also which is also advocating for the Convention of Older People. I think I can stop there, then I go back to what I want to say. In fact, I would pick up from what the ambassador of Kenya said when she said that she grew up from her grandma and her grandfather. And I could pick up that we should recognize the value of intergenerational partnership, because there is much wisdom. As she said, that she was taught about her language, local language. She was taught about the poem and poetry, because there is a lot of wisdom, there is a lot of experience, there is a lot of historical context, which the old people have. And while young individuals also, as she said, they have often fresh perspective about technology and about innovation ideas. So there is a need to encourage a collaborative sort of work between the age group in various sectors. For example, including education, including research, and policy making. But having said that, as the one who have just said about the community, we see a lot in the community as the one who are advocating for the intergenerational collaboration, but I don't see much in the groups of youth or young people who are involved in aging issues. And I do not see youth groups. Of course, they are the future old, and they have to speak out on the behalf of older people, but I'm not seeing them. So we need to reach out beyond our community and then involve the youth, the young person, that they too need to speak about their future, what will be ahead for them when they become old. Will their rights be protected? Will they have affordable and accessible healthcare services? Will they have sufficient food security? Will they have affordable housing? Will they have long-term care, as the last speaker said? Will they have social protection or palliative care? So we should come out and talk to the group, the young groups, about all those things, which are in SDGs. In fact, it covers all the SDGs. And again, I go back to what Mal said about the document, which said, I saw that the stakeholders group on aging, they submitted their inputs on drafting of the pack for the future, for the older people. But very little has been achieved or reflected. The pack emphasizes the cooperation between generations and also fostering understanding and collaboration on issues of poverty, on health and environment, but we don't see much being done. And also it emphasizes the needs of older people today and on the young generation tomorrow. But nothing's being done there in that pact. It has just gone into a cupboard by our governments. And then also it emphasizes, it calls for the decision that considers long-term consequences, including environmental. I'm sure someone will talk about it. And then it also talks about the health planet, clean air and sustainable resources. But nothing's done much about it, though at this time, I think people are starting to come out and see what is happening. So going back to the policies, what the state can do, I think the policies can play a crucial role in addressing the challenging poses by an aging population. As the ambassador said, she's very worried, because she said 1 in 6 people by 20, they will be older people. So you should look at that context, and member states can align the policies with the demographic shifts. And then also they can develop policies that recognize the value of both old and young generation, considering their unique contribution and needs across all various SDGs. And of course, they should implement policies that protect older people from poverty and also include pension, social security, social safety nets, and affordable housing. I'm just rushing because my time is over. Then I could certainly, I'm bringing, if we bring a generation together to create sustainable long-term change is essential. And I'm going to talk about what Rwanda is doing, that bringing the generation, the generational, intergeneration together. One, getting generation to come together require inclusive of young people in the work that we do as older people, and also convincing them that they will too get old and need to work that we do, and also to ensure their rights are fully protected. If I give an example, in Rwanda, we are involving youth in community awareness raising through cultural events. We organize cultural events and call them, and then give them a topic about the intergeneration, and then we have such activities. All individuals also can mentor young ones, as the ambassador said, sharing wisdom and experience. And in return, young generation can also offer fresh perspective and technology skills. For example, we usually organize intergenerational dialogue and workshops between youth and older people, and to create a common understanding of sustainable challenges and solutions in Rwanda. We have some groups of older people, but of course we encourage also the young ones to mix, not old people alone, but mix, and then they train the older people, and then even the older people give their wisdom. And another one is about the older adults can participate in long life learning, while young one can learn from the experience. For example, in Rwanda, we have what we call evening classes. We have evening classes where people who never had a chance to go to school in the evenings after their work, and they are taught how to read and write. they are taught how to do crafting, they are taught how to do tailoring. So, and they do it with young people. So it becomes that they can both participate into life learning projects. So I think my time is up. I'll wait for some question. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rose. Carol, can you make a comment with regard to Rose's presentation?
Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you, Rose, for your commitment to the cause of older people and for coming on and sharing some very deep insights with us. Just one question. You've spoken about intergenerational solidarity, inclusion. I'm just wondering whether Rwanda, which has a significant young population, is also prioritizing social protection, and whether you're bringing in the intergenerational solidarity into the social protection mechanisms. So, Rose, if you could just come back and speak to that, that would be great.
Thank you, Carlo. I think Rwanda is one country which I think 58% of the population is youth and women. Half of the population of Rwanda is the youth. For Rwanda, it has looked very far and has set up a fund, or it's like a bank, I could sell it, encouraging people from saving when you are, as soon as you are born, until when God calls you. It's called Ezoheza. That one, when you save, it will take all the time of your year. And when you retire, you won't go to the very little money which some people get on their retirement according to what they have been working, but that fund will be the funding of what you have saved throughout that year. And that's one of the safety network, the social protection, where someone will not feel like is not supported because the government has encouraged the youth to save as young as they are. I think that's one area of encouraging people. Again, they're encouraging people to go into technology as young as 18. They have robots, they have whatever, and that's a way of getting some money, and then they save. They are looking at a young generation to go into skills than taking the white collar courses. That's what I could say. And in skills, you get money and then you save for the future than waiting for the government to give you, because government, you should give the government, yes, and not the government to give you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. Back to you, Jack.
Okay, now our next important panelist is Daria Sotude. Now, she represents Friday for the Future out of Germany. And she is a younger person, but let us remember that climate activism is one of the most important concerns that we have around the globe. The intergenerational connections are on display currently in the world, where older people and younger people working together have actually made a step forward. There's recent litigation in the European judiciary system where a bunch of seniors from Switzerland, older Swiss women, have been successful in their climate litigation. And so I'd like to turn this over to Daria to talk to some of these issues. Go for it, Daria.
Yes, so I'm also very happy to be here. And yes, I am going to share my perspective on the issue as far as I can as a younger person, as part of Gen Z probably. I am, as Jack already mentioned, I'm a climate justice activist. I mainly work in Germany, That's where I also live and grew up. And yes, I'm part of Fridays for Future in Germany, but I've also worked on an international level with other Fridays for Future groups or climate justice groups. I've been active for 4 years, more or less, 4.5. And we've been working on the issues of global climate justice, intersectional climate justice, but also on political measures that we demand the German government, in that case, to take. And so first of all, I guess Fridays for Future is quite well known, but for a quick explanation, maybe we're an international movement for climate justice. It started 6 years ago in 2018, and mainly our main purpose was that we demand appropriate measures from each country, from each respective government, especially measures that go along with the compliance with the Paris Climate Agreement that has been signed by more than 190 countries and governments. And that's like, since that agreement has been signed in 2015, and many governments still fail to take respective appropriate measures, and we just see that we're not gonna limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees. That's what motivated many young people back then to protest. And at the beginning, there was this huge disruptive moment because we were perceived as something new, as representation of the younger generation, of giving a voice to younger people that are probably not even allowed to vote. And we were created and we sorry, I was distracted a bit. So that's what our main purpose was. And there was a lot of anger and frustration coming from the younger generation. And that's also part of the reason why in the media, for example, we were mainly perceived as a young movement of the Gen Z or young generation in general. However, of course, the issue of climate justice and the climate crisis does not only affect us. And that's why, for example, it's important to share perspectives. It's important to keep in mind that the climate justice movement has not started with Fridays for Future. There have been several movements and groups before we started, and they paved our way somehow. And I think in many countries we have those movements and parties that have been created, in Germany as well. And it's important to stay in touch or to get in touch with these groups and to exchange our experiences so that we can build up on what they've already started. In addition to that, it's important that that's a positive experience that I made, that we have different groups that represent different parts of society and how they're affected by the climate crisis. Regarding Fridays for Future, for example, we have not only the young group called Fridays for Future. They have been several other groups like Parents for Future or Grandmas for Future. That's a group that exists in Germany.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So
these focus on intergenerational opportunities for activists.
Sure. So they, I mean, we have individual, independent local groups. So the coordination is very different. in each city, but in general, for example, the Grandmas for Future, they like what we do in general is that we support each other. They also support our strikes. They try to advertise the protests within their community and motivate more people that are part of their generation or their community to participate at the protests, to also create a social media presence. They're also active on social media. And it's as well important to talk about the effects that the climate crisis has on older people and elderly people, because of course, I think especially in media, there is a huge focus on the consequences of the crisis for future generations. But of course, if we talk about the current situation, there are several parts of society that are affected more severely, and older people are one of them, because they may be affected more, especially when it comes to health consequences for your health, if we have heat waves and several other consequences that can occur in different parts of the world. It's mainly, for example, detrimental for older people or other groups that are somehow not represented in the movement. And therefore, that's one of the important parts. And what we do as well is that we, just not only stay in touch, but that we also exchange our perspective and what we need in our everyday life. And for example, when it comes to older people and the older generation, it's important to see what they need in their everyday life to be able to participate in society, to be protected, or to be able to protect themselves from severe heat or floods or other consequences that are occurring right now. And one example that we have been pursuing recently in Germany, for example, is that we found that public transport is very crucial in order to create, participation and inclusion for many different groups in society, and older people are especially affected by this, since they
Unfortunately,
need it.
Daria, we're going to have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Because we have other important, every presentation is important, but I'd also like to move on. Could you make one final statement with regard to intergenerational opportunities?
Yes. So yeah, I think it's just important to keep in mind different realities of also the older generation, and that we and the different groups representing the different generations work together and listen to each other. That's what we try to pursue also in the future.
Thank you so much, Daria. I wanted to move on to James David Dugba, who is the Secretary General of the National Senior Citizens Organization of Liberia. And this organization is a member of the Stakeholder Group on Aging. And we're honored that he's going to be presenting with us. And he also has one of the participants, an older person, with him. James, would you be so kind as to start?
Yes, thank you very much, Jake. Hello and good morning to everyone. My name is James Bebe Dubai, earlier mentioned, from Liberia. I serve as the General Secretary for the National Senior Citizen Organizations of Liberia, and also a member of the Stakeholder Group on Aging. From the depth of my heart, I'm grateful to all those who contributed and supported the conference activities, and participants like me who couldn't have had the means to attend the 2024 United Nations Civil Society Conference in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm grateful for that. I also Grateful to the stakeholder group of aging for affording me this opportunity to again discuss issues of concern in the term of bridging intergenerational device, a powerful lever of change for sustainable development group. I will be looking at specifically Liberia context where intergenerational collaboration have made an impact for us here. And firstly, I will look at peace building initiative. Now, Liberia has seen a very significant effort in peace building where older and younger generation have played a very crucial role as of today. For instance, after the civil unrest, which lasted for more than 14 unbroken years, older Liberians who experienced the conflict firsthand often act as a mentor and an advisor to younger generations in promoting peace and reconciliation. One organization like the Liberian Peace Building Network and civil society group facilitate dialogues and storytelling where old elders share their experiences and lessons learned to help younger people understand the importance of maintaining peace. And in so doing, the younger people likewise also try to disseminate these peace messages through social media, community-based events, and so on. And one of those network is the Talking Drum Studio as well as the Liberia Pursuit of Peace. We always try to do this. In terms of community development projects, older persons often bring their experiences and wisdom to community development program, while youth then contribute energies and new ideas. Now, for examples in Liberia, in rural area, older farmers who have extensive knowledge on traditional farming techniques collaborate with younger individuals who then integrate modern ideas and technology to improve crops yields and sustainability, and some of which have been initiated and sponsored by the Food and Agriculture Organization. In terms of education, older educated community members volunteer to teach literacy and numeracy to young people. In terms, the younger generation then help the older people in indicators and literacy program, enabling them to get used to technology and stay connected. As it relates to like one of the examples would be the YMCA and YWCA. Older adults have volunteered themselves in paying more attention to youth career guidance and skill development in Liberia. And now in terms of our culture, projects aimed for preserving Liberian culture often involve both old and young people in Liberia. For example, elders pass on their traditional crafts, music, dance, and storytelling to the young generation, ensuring that cultural heritage is maintained. And for health, we look at actually the Ebola virus which took place in 2014 in Liberia. Older and younger people always collaborate and fight the virus in terms of making sure to visit homes and educating them on health measures. So we often collaborate on that end. That is one of our go-to as well for our organization. Even during the coronavirus, we try to do this as well. And so it's like Setting by Me, to conclude on that, Setting by Me is the founder of the National Senior Citizen Organization of Liberia. He is Mr. Arthur K. Masali. He brought the idea. He said, so I must employ him. He brought the idea. And I just try to integrate the idea that today we both are sitting on the national platform and disseminating our message that the rights of older people will be restored in Liberia. So thank you very much for affording me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, James. And also thank you to your colleague who's been the inspiration for you. Let him be the inspiration for people around the world to become intergenerational, to work, older people and younger people working together towards a common goal, which is what you guys are the embodiment of. You are exactly what we're looking to see happen everywhere. Thank you. Our next speaker is Belen Martinez from Spain, and she is with HelpAge. España, and she's going to be able to provide us some examples of how, not only in Spain, but at the global level, older generations and younger generations can work together to make a real difference. That has been her hallmark on human rights and older persons, and I look forward to hearing her remarks.
Thank you, Jack, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning for everybody. I'm really happy to be here and also really happy to see some new faces and some known faces. That is always really good. My name, as Jack has said, is Belén Martínez, and I represent HelpAge International España. And I'm also a member of the steering group of GAROP, that is the Global Alliance for the Rights of Older People, a global coalition of NGOs, more than 400, campaigning for a new UN Convention on the Rights of Older People. My speech will focus on 3 sustainable development goals and an intergenerational initiative associated with each one of these goals. Development goals I will be speaking is about SDG 4 on education, SDG 10 on reducing inequalities, and SDG 13 on climate change. So thank you, Daria, that you also speak about that, and I think it's really important. In this case, I think I'm going to do a general remark, that is that the SDG that really talks more about older people is SDG 11, but we want to have more initiative related to other SDGs because it's really important. In each one, I will give an example of an intergenerational activity. In SDG 4, I will talk about an initiative of Aging Nepal that I think my colleague Sanju it's here. So hi, Sanju. On SDG 10, I will talk about initiative of Dismoa, that is an NGO in Mauritius. And regarding SDG 13, I will talk initiative of my organization. All of this is a small sample of the activities that can be carried out in relation to SDGs and intergenerational activities. But I think that a key is creativity. Like, we need a lot of creativity to do more intergenerational activities. And I think that is, as we have seen in the panel, one of the key aspects. We can do a lot of things, but we only have to be creative, and also we have to ask for resources to do these activities. Within goal number 4, there is a target specifically that sets the following objectives. That is, by 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to promote sustainable development, including through education, sustainable development, and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, and more stuff that I'm not going to talk, because if not, you are going to get bored. Regarding this, Aging Nepal has created an aging literary society in 2020 to increase the intergenerational voices in society, community, and nation as a whole. 18 aging literary societies has been established in 18 districts in Nepal so far. They provided seed money to establish some of the societies to support and encourage them. And later, many people from many districts took initiative by themselves. So they first promoted a small project, and then the project itself duplicated and replicated itself because the people think that it was really valuable. In this case, the society motivates youth and other age groups to write poems, stories, essays, and other literature focusing on the issues of older persons. In this case, we can see a lot of voices talking about older persons in different perspectives. Currently, members of the 18 aging literary societies are conducting a competition in schools of their respective districts. The members are visiting the schools to inspire the students, and also they are going to have three winners are going to be selected in each district. During the prize distribution ceremony, other persons and winners will be gathered in a place, and they will be interacted through the literature. So they choose a component and then build a whole project regarding this this project. Regarding SDG 10, that is reducing inequalities, the target 2 states that by 2030, empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all people, regardless age, gender, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, economic, or other status. In this regard, in this second SDG that we are talking, the NGO DISMA has a practice in with their management team, with themselves, and I think it's really interesting that an NGO, you can see that from the core they are working on this, is because the management team has younger and older members at parity. They share their views and develop a shared understanding on issues regarding other persons. In so doing, they are developing a culture of dialogue, which they carry out to those whom they meet in their advocacy campaign. This MOA also runs online training open to all, including people of all ages, on human rights, consolidated by in-person training. They have a specific model on the rights of older persons, through which they address the importance of exchange of views within the intergenerational dialogue in the family. So they also promote through training and inside the families that we can and we have to talk about these issues. It's important because sometimes in the families we have it more associated because we interact with people from other generations, but maybe it's something that we can promote in other families that maybe they don't have that much into account. And then finally on SDG 13 on climate change, that I'm really happy that also Amal talk about this in the speech. We will find target 3 that says that we must improve education, awareness, and human rights and institutional capacity with respect to climate change mitigation, adaptation, reduction of its effects, and early warning. In this sense, Helpage International España has held roundtables discussions between representatives of the Youth Council of Spain and researchers and other people on the effects of heat waves, specifically on other people, pointing out the importance of generations working together on climate change. Also really happy, Jack, that you said the Tribunal of European Human Rights that says that gives the reason to Swiss women, but also it's important that also an association of Portuguese young people also promote climate change. So we can see how everybody wants to achieve this goal. So we can see at final how SDGs and intergenerational activities can work together if we are a little bit creative and we focus in empowering everybody. As the Agenda 2030 says, leave no one behind, means working people of all ages, no matter where they come from. It's important to have in mind in order to create a better society. Know that people are diversity, and in that diversity we have and we need to work, because it's really, really the key of the aspect. I have to mention that the Global Alliance of the Rights of Older People has a global campaign called Age with Rights, which unites people from all ages and backgrounds around the world, calling on governments to take urgent action and start drafting a new UN Convention on the Rights of Older People, as Stefano has also pointed out. Without delay, it's important this convention to strengthen the rights of older people today and future generations, because the young people of today is going to be the older people of tomorrow. You can support also this campaign by signing our petition that I'm going to put in the chat box, recording a short campaign video message, or helping to spread the word on social media. And thank you so much to in this forum, and hope to now the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Belen. We're grateful that for your expansive view and offering opportunities. Again, I will repeat, this event is about inspiration. No doubt, everybody who's been on this call is now on the has the opportunity for inspiration. So I'm honored to be able to say our next speaker is Ambassador Nava. I always have a hard time, I apologize. Narvaez from Chile. She has been a staunch supporter of the rights of older people. Chile not only is the president of ECOSOC right now, but is the chair of the Group of Friends of Older People at the United Nations. She's going to be delivering a few remarks, and we're honored that she has the opportunity to squeeze us into her very busy schedule here at the High Level Political Forum. If you're there, would you be so kind as to say hello to us, Ambassador?
Hello, Jack. I'm here, actually, hearing you.
And I know that you haven't had the opportunity to listen to the conversation, but honestly, it's been pretty awesome. It's been pretty awesome. So looking forward to hearing some of your comments on intergenerational collaboration and how that can be an effective opportunity for change.
Thank you very much, Jack. And of course, my colleague Maria Paula has been following all the whole conversation. So we were discussing before I can present my remarks now. Thank you so much. So let me thank the Stakeholder Group on Aging and the Department of Economic and Social Affairs for organizing this important event to highlight the key role that older persons play in achieving the goals and targets of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including through intergenerational cooperation. I would also like to thank Her Excellency Jambi Kinjungo, Deputy Permanent Representative of Kenya to the United Nations, and Stefano Guerra, attaché at the Permanent Mission of Portugal to the United Nations, as well as the esteemed panelists for their valuable contributions. To that end, allow me to highlight the following points, some of which were raised during this event. First, the importance of intergenerational programs in communities and institutions, including to promote lifelong learning and establish positive social change. Second, the role of intergenerational dialogue and partnership in advancing the SDGs and the importance of including older persons in the follow-up mechanisms to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And third, the key contribution of intergenerational engagement to prevent and address social isolation, loneliness, and care, but also to face old and emerging challenges, including the climate crisis, eradicating poverty, and strengthening the social protection systems. From this insightful conversation, it is evident that the topic of the today's event could not be more timely. As we know, there is a long road ahead in terms of fostering intergenerational solidarity and awareness. As an example of a good practice in this regard, in my country, Chile, we are promoting initiatives to foster intergenerational solidarity and tackle ageism and age-based discrimination, including the program Let's Make a Deal, that seeks to instill into younger generations to uphold a deal of good treatment and respectful relationships with older persons. Looking forward, I believe this event provides a very meaningful entry point to strategize our next steps, particularly considering that we already have laid the ground to promote the role of older persons in achieving sustainable development. The mention of older persons in last year's SDG Summit is a starting point, which also builds upon the 2030 Agenda itself, which refers to older persons, including Goal 2 related to ending hunger and achieving food security, and Goal 11 regarding to making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The link between the empowerment of older persons and the achievement of the 2030 Agenda is evident, since by 2030, 1 in 6 people in the world will be aged 60 years or over. Furthermore, by 2050, the world's population of people aged 60 years and older will double. To this end, I want to stress the need for countries to begin to prepare for the demographic shifts in societies, which will have economic and societal implications for governments and the economy. It is important that we begin accounting for older persons and their needs, including by assessing such demographic shifts and the needs of older populations in their VNRs. We must therefore continue to raise awareness to build upon the existing frameworks that have been established within the UN system. The good news is that we do not need to reinvent the wheel. It has been and will continue to be a collective effort to build synergies and bridge the gaps between the Madrid Plan of Action, the United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the outcomes of the consultative process regarding the well-known Secretary General's report, Our Common Agenda. We encourage you all to build upon the existing efforts to move forward with this agenda. To conclude, I would like to emphasize on this occasion that no human being is immune to old age. Therefore, normative and policy advances on the human rights and well-being of older adults today will benefit us all in the future. You can always count on Chile to promote the rights of older persons and their active participation in all processes related to sustainable development. And I thank you, Jack and all.
Thank you so much for those beautiful comments, for your commitment and for your clarity, and for the progress of the SDGs. And we honor your commitment and what you've done on behalf of older people everywhere in every country for so long. Thank you. Now, as we're going to conclude, and then if we have time, we're going to take questions. So Carol Agango, who is the co-focal point of the Stakeholder Group on Aging, I can't wait to hear your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you everybody who has attended this very interesting conversation that we have had. And we've done a broad sweep across the globe. We have had several discussions, very interesting, from the personal to the political, because the personal is political, and we must get involved across those two divides. What I'm going to say is laden with divides. So that is the first divide. And the comments that we have received, the remarks that we have heard, demonstrate that there's a great deal of activity that is happening on the aging front. And this is from Latin America. We've had examples all the way across Europe and Africa. And if we went across to all the countries in between, we would get even more examples. But as the world is aging, we need to pay attention, because the current world that is aging is a very youthful world. But the social, cultural, and economic dynamics are changing with this demographic change. So there couldn't be a better time for intergenerational solidarity and conversations that strengthen such solidarity. These are even becoming more urgent. But the two demographic divides also intersect across many ways. So we must also level up the way that we bring intersectionality. So because aging includes components of gender, components of economics, components of climate change. So we must look at how the various issues intersect, even as we continue to bridge the generational divide and have younger people speaking to the issues of aging, so that they step into a future that is better prepared for aging. And as I conclude, I just want to urge us all to get age ready, especially those who are young amongst us. Let us be age ready, so that when the world changes and cities become have more aging populations in them, the cities are age-friendly, so that social protection mechanisms are strengthened, so that the laws are responsive to the needs of older people. We have heard about the statistics, the data that shows that 1 in 6 people will be over 60 in the year 2050. So let us get age ready. So as I conclude, I want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you to Ambassador Njambi Kinyungu, Ambassador Stefano Guerro, Ambassador Narvaez, who has closed this very powerfully for us, but also to our collaborator and friend, Amal from DESA. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the panelists who have taken time and prepared and come and given us their insights. All of you who have been sharing information on the chat, thank you. We will keep this going. What we can do as a stakeholders group on aging is to give you a one-page summary with as many links as possible, as many points as possible, so that we take the conversation forward. And as I close, I want to thank my co-focal point, Jack Kafferman, who has done an amazing job in getting us to this place. Thank you very much, Jack. And thank you, Sylvia, who has worked behind the scenes, and a lot of other colleagues from the stakeholder group on aging. I hope that this has been useful, and let's keep the conversation going. Back to you, Jack.
Okay. There's not that much more that we can say. I think everybody's head is really full with ideas and enthusiasm and opportunities. We all know that the Sustainable Development Goals have been stalled because of the many crises in the world today. And we are looking, the theme of this year's, one of the themes of this year's high-level political forum is about resiliency and innovation. I am 100% certain that we have identified one opportunity for innovation, which is intergenerational collaboration, working towards the achievement of the goals, both at the very micro level and the macro level. And I am also quite surprised that we have made the entire session within the hour and a half that we had originally set. I'm grateful for everybody's participation and for their beautiful presentations and their thought-provoking ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you and bye-bye.
I want to say thank you to everyone. It's been really great. Thank you so much.
And Amal, God bless you. Thank you so much for all of your amazing help.
Thank you very much, all who prepared this.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure, our honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And thanks to my founder. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And really happy to see you, Carol.
Thank you, Belen. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Senator. Nice to see you, Senator Eze.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
To all our
Bye.
presenters, you are done well. God bless you. Thank you so much.